This is Father Patrick Briscoe.
This is Father Joseph Anthony Kress.
Welcome to Godsplaining. Thanks to all who support us. If you enjoy the show, please consider making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. Be sure to like and subscribe to Godsplaining wherever you listen to your podcasts. Before we get too much further into this episode, though, I need to stop us for one important announcement. It's actually a thank you to all of you who support the podcast, who allow us to continue to do what we do. One of the things that we noticed right away in the project was that we did not want simply to have a virtual project, a digital project, an internet project. We wanted to be able to get together, so we relied on you, asking you for help to subsidize our retreats and one-day events. Those are getting bigger and better. We keep traveling around. I don't know if you know this, but airline tickets cost money, and even if you want to do something in a church, you're not always going to get it underwritten, so we have to pay money for spaces, and we're trying to be good hosts and get all this together. You make all of that possible. Your generosity allows our ministry to be incarnate, to be in the flesh, to be with real people in real places, and we love it. So thank you for that. Also, this year, we're asking for a little bit of money for a little bit of renovation. One of my desires when I was living in a rectory that needed some attention was to host a show on EWTN called Rescue My Rectory, and I would go around and help priests fix up their broken down rectories. I think it would be great. It'd be a lot of fun. We're going to file that idea away because it still might be usable. But we do need to pay a little attention to our space here. It's not our own idea. This has been recommended to us by consultants telling us how to do better. And doing better isn't just for our own pride. It's so that people can hear the good news, so that people can come to know Jesus Christ and enrich their spiritual lives. So please consider participating in our ministry by helping us to give our studio a little facelift, to get some upgrades in terms of how things look, and for some of our technology. So we appreciate your generosity on both of these fronts. Father Joseph Anthony, way back in middle school or even high school, do you remember what the first CD you went out and bought was?
Yes. I don't remember the name of it. I do remember the artist. It was Mace. Yeah, I think I was like in second grade or something. Nice. It was a hip hop rap CD in second grade. I'm pretty sure that was the first one that I actually purchased, of my own money, which is just wild to think back to.
I don't remember going to get. I couldn't tell you what my first album was. I remember in sixth grade when the Backstreet Boys Millennium album came out.
Oh, yeah.
I remember that being a super big deal. I remember being very particularly interested in that. Obviously, we had NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, all these other groups.
Yeah. But you were a Backstreet Boy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And the Millennium album was the best one.
That was something. And but what's an even clearer memory was going, I turned 10, and my 10th birthday present was a stereo.
Oh, nice.
And my dad and I went to pick it out. So we went to Best Buy together.
Yeah.
We spent about $100.
Ooh.
It had, 4 speakers. They were all, obviously everything's wired, and so I had strategically placed them around the room. We spent an afternoon, just listening to all this different music and making sure that the sound was just right.
Yeah. That was awesome. I remember, I think I did a conference when I was in high school. And when I was at that conference, I was probably a freshman and sophomore in high school. I had put in my duffel bag my stereo to take with me. So it was a big CD deck and 2 bookshelf speakers. And I brought it to this dorm room for a weekend because I was I still want to listen to music. I
gotta listen to my music.
I
that Walkman's not gonna do it for that
exactly.
long.
And this random roommate that I had from another part of Ohio that just randomly got paired with me is who is it? I have a whole separate duffel bag with my stereo because I wanted to be the cool. I felt like I was moving into a dorm. I was this is what you do. You set up your dorm room. You have to have the vibes right, baby. And I brought the vibes.
This is extremely on brand.
I know.
Nothing about this story surprises me.
Yeah.
I mean, so for us, it was NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. But for a generation now, the defining musician has been none other than Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Which is why we wanted to talk about her, because she occupies a place, a status that seems different than anyone who has come before. So I wonder if you might say a few words about why you think Taylor Swift is different and why she's worth talking about for us.
Yeah, there's a few artists that they come around at like kind of every generation, and they become like the voice of the people in a certain way because of there's a resonance with them, and there's a following, and it's not just that they had a few hits or something like that, but they have a more, not just a shelf life, but they become this kind of voice of a generation in a way that shapes and kind of crafts a culture around that. And she has been that for a long time. I think one of the things that sets her apart is not just her kind of showmanship or musicality or things like that, but she, at the heart of herself, is a songwriter. And I think she really prides herself on that. And she sees that as probably her greatest talent is in her songwriting. It's pretty much well known that she writes all of her songs. And in the music industry, there are people whose entire livelihood is writing songs for these big pop artists, but they never perform them. And they either are the producer of the song, or they wrote a song and then they give it to an artist, or like, I wrote this song with this one artist in mind to do. But Taylor Swift has done that herself. She hasn't employed songwriters. She hasn't employed anybody else in that process, but she has a very, the entire creative process from the songwriting, it's hers. And I think that's one of the things that's really unique about her, is that she has risen to such a high stardom in this way, but she has kept that very intentionally to be her project and her work. And, you know, you can look at the headlines and the stories. There were fights with who actually owns her music. And then she was very creative in how she got around some of this, the ownership of her music, with re-releasing all of her versions, the Taylor versions, and like who owns the master copies of her music and things like that. But it was that fight for her was important because she's like, I wrote these songs. Like, these are my songs. And I think that's going to be something that is underlying all of this, but really important to understand that she's just not another pop artist that is a product of a machine that people have put her out there. But like, she has been very intentional. All of her work is her work in that way.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the ownership dispute in talking about why she's important, because I like the ownership dispute a lot, because it for me it signals not just an artist's attachment and the kind of creative genius that's there, because I do believe that Taylor Swift is a generational talent.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
By any objective measure, and I think that can be said without being overly conflicted. It doesn't take a struggle session.
No.
To acknowledge that. I think it's obvious. But I appreciate that. I appreciate the ownership dispute, because it also betrays a sense of business savvy and capability that is worth admiring. Because someone doesn't go through something like that without also knowing how to continue to strategize towards success. So she's a generational talent, not just because of the music she's producing, but because of the way she's managing what she's produced. That creativity that you brought up, I think that extends with some of the tours.
Yes. Yes.
You know, I'm thinking of the Eras tour. That's a major one that I saw a lot of merch for.
Oh yeah.
You can't go anywhere without noticing it.
No.
Or the theater release, for providing the whole Taylor Swift experience to many more people. The kind of experience that drives her concerts, that people are willing to pay thousands of dollars for single event tickets.
Yeah. I mean, even the Eras tour was such a remarkable event production. I don't think you can call it a concert. It was a total experience. She was so intentional about everything that she did. My two sisters went to multiple concerts on the Eras tour. They saw her, I think, in Indianapolis.
We love you, Erica. We love you, Aaron.
Yeah. No, and in hearing and having conversations, it's really opened my eyes. I had appreciation for Taylor Swift for her music and her work, but hearing the extent, and the dedication of her fan base, that people were willing to just get a ticket. It didn't matter where in the world. They would go to that place and make that event because they got a ticket to, Spain or Portugal, London, Warsaw. I had so many students that were like, "Oh, I'm going to Spain this year." I'm like, "Oh, are you going on pilgrimage?" And they're like, "Well, I got a ticket in Barcelona to Taylor Swift, so we're going to make that our trip." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like, it just is such a wild experience.
Yeah, I have friends that went down to see her. I think it was Argentina. They went someplace far in Latin America, just because that was the place where they managed to get a ticket. And I like that you made this. You presumed, oh, these people are going on a pilgrimage, but there is a kind of pilgrimage quality to the experience because her fans have such a connection with her.
Yeah. Yeah, it is really impressive. And then it even continues on after the event itself. The kind of, I want to say, the ripple effect after that, like, everybody's paid attention to her outfit changes throughout. And they changed, like, according, it was like, okay, I used to go to concert venues and, like, what was the set list? But they're paying attention to even the outfits and detailing that and kind of keeping those as mementos and kind of being able to be reminded of what they experienced in that event and to kind of almost ritualize it as that kind of depth and connection in that way. So it's been a really interesting experience. This Eras tour, for many reasons, can be talked about as a monumental event and kind of in the entertainment industry, what she was able to pull off in all these different cities and all of that stuff is very, very impressive. But just watching her fan base engage with her in this Eras tour as a part of kind of rite of passage, but also how they hold so dearly to that experience. And she was able to do this in city after city, night after night, that takes just such an amount of fortitude and courage and perseverance to continually repeat this again and again as if it was the first time. It's very impressive. That whole Eras tour it was just wildly impressive.
Now, it seems to me, you could say what you want about this, maybe you disagree. It seems to me that connection that Taylor has with her fans is premised on the shared experience of life.
Yes.
That so many people hear her music and are able to identify with what she's writing about. And so that connection that she's built with her fans is really premised on something that's already there, namely something that the listener has already lived. And Taylor provides a narration or a way to understand or reflect on or even move through.
Yes.
To be healed from a broken relationship, to even move through something that's difficult. So she's offering tools for listeners to navigate the perils of their own life, and in that way is kind of a guide for people.
And some of my favorite artists are the singer-songwriters. That's kind of where I find my most. I have a preference for those types of singer-songwriters. My
like the Backstreet Boys.
Like the Backstreet Boys, yeah. No. My favorite is an Irish artist, Dermot Kennedy, but like he's such a beautiful way to kind of, and why I found a connection was like he put words to life experiences that I didn't know how to process. And I'm not a musician, I don't know how to sing, but here was somebody who was able to put in kind of poetic lyrics my lived experience of my own humanity. And I think Taylor has done that for many others as well. And some of her songs, I've even been like, yes, thank you for saying that. I didn't know how to articulate it, but what you have said in the lyrics is exactly what I've been trying to articulate in my life. It reminds me a lot of John Paul II's letter to the artist. And he says, like, a letter, or the artist is one who actually plunges into the depths of the human person. And in those depths, you find the one in whose image we've been created. And we share that. And so when you have artists like Taylor, who's putting lyrics and words to life experiences that are not necessarily particular to her as celebrity or anything like that, but just particular to her as a woman, her as a human being, that's very accessible. And it creates a deep union and that kind of fervent fan base, because when she's done it time and time and time again, it can be this moment of, okay, you're giving words to my life experiences that I don't know how to maybe articulate or process, and now I feel like here's a voice that I've been longing to have in that way. And I think that's really, she's done that time and time again.
Yeah, I agree that turn into the depths of the human soul. This is what every talented artist does.
Exactly.
This is the purpose of art. That reference you just made to John Paul's letter to the artist is excellent. Friends, if you haven't read that letter yet, you should. I really recommend it to you. But that turn to the human spirit, or that look into the human heart, to see what's there in our depths, I think is successful in Taylor Swift, because there's something of an openness to a further horizon there. Mm-hmm. There is a desire for there to be something more, and often in her music that's expressed in love. And I want to talk more about that towards the end of the episode. So I'll just leave it at that. There's a kind of openness to more. Now, what do we say? There's been a lot of praise here for Taylor Swift.
Yes.
And some people who are good friends and fans of the podcast are probably ready to write us off or strangle us, because this isn't nearly based enough a take on Taylor Swift for you. But there are things to be concerned about here. Mm-hmm. So, Father Joseph Anthony, when you look at Taylor Swift and you see the experience that people have had of her, of her music, what's one thing that we should be cautious about?
Yeah, I do think I see two things. One is kind of a very cultish, atmosphere and experience around her, which it raises eyebrows. Like, we always want to be concerned of that, cult of personality and things like that. I think one of the things that we've been talking a lot about, her songwriting, her musicality, and how it speaks to human experiences. But there's also a little bit of a risk in doing that. She's been very kind of public, if you want to say that, in processing her own romantic relationships through her songs. And don't get me wrong, romantic relationships are great fodder for the arts in all their ways. But uniquely with hers, entire albums can be attached to very public relationships that she's had. And it's something where you have to be careful about how kind of public somebody is processing very intimate aspects of their life.
Yeah, I certainly feel that way, because it's part of the reason why she's successful, like we were saying.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't want to imitate that in our own lives. To
exactly.
Think, because Taylor Swift is singing about these things doesn't mean that I need to tell everyone this much information about what's gone on in my own heart or what's gone on in my past. Because this happens a lot of times at the beginning of a relationship, where someone thinks like, well, how much do I want to tell my new partner? How much do I want to tell the person that I'm dating about my past? And, my personal thought is you should say very little in a kind of formal way. Mm-hmm. And that these things will be shared as a relationship evolves in a natural and prudential way. But I think there's a desire, because you want to share something with your partner, with the person you love, with the person you start dating, and there's a temptation to kind of download on them everything from your past.
Yes,
and that's not really necessary.
No, and I think yes, there's unique aspects of her life that most of us don't share, the high level of celebrity and things like that. But there's this way that we don't want to publicly process intimate parts of our life. And we can process that within kind of intimate friendships, talk with our best friend about a breakup or things like that. But we don't need to go for the biggest platform in order to process that, right? And I think we each have our own.
Yeah, it's a good point, because for a lot of people, the temptation would be social media too.
That's
so
not
not just with another partner, but like to put everything up on Instagram and see nothing wrong with it because Taylor Swift talks about all this stuff.
Exactly. And say, like, if we were going to drop a link to one of her songs about, how a relationship unfolded, whether it's at the beginning stage or at the end stage, there's ways to have that. But it is, I think we should be cautious about how public we process intimate parts of our life. And just given her work and kind of how public her life is, and a lot of her relationships have been celebrity romantic relationships, and people have begun to attach certain albums to certain phases. It was like, oh, I think it was that the Red album was when she was dating, Jake Gyllenhaal or something like that, and everybody like sees that as part of her life, and they begin to attach her work to these relationships, and it's like that's how she processed. That's her like retaliation song against this boyfriend or things like that. And it's like,
I'll Google who that other guy is later.
Yeah, exactly. If I remember correctly, like, the Swifties out there are going to destroy me if I have that off.
I don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
But I like the first point you were making, and want to say a little bit more about that, where you said there could be a cult-like following.
Yes.
We were making natural comparisons, saying like, oh, it's kind of like a pilgrimage to go to a Taylor Swift concert, or there's an experience of the concert that's kind of ritualistic. We should be very, very concerned that it doesn't cross the line of being something that's analogous to being the true expression, because I think this is when her demagoguery becomes very much a concern. You use the word cult-like, but where people can supplant their natural religious desires and transfer all of those expressions onto their experience of a Taylor Swift concert. That's very bad. And I think that's happening. I think there's a kind of idolatry of this person.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's overstated. And I think that needs to be said in order to free people and to allow them to have what's actually a correct appropriation of her talents and of her music. And one of my concerns about that kind of following of a celebrity is that you let that person begin to shape the way you think about the world.
Yes.
So when Taylor Swift entered into politics, for example, that I thought was a very dangerous thing, because I don't know that she's the right person to shape America's political landscape for a lot of reasons. And I think that it's a question for the age. It's a perennial question. They're always going to be celebrities. They're always going to influence our culture.
And they're always going to have their own opinions on life and their own perspectives. And that there's nothing wrong with that.
But we have to be careful about how we receive it.
Yes, exactly. And with any celebrity, but Taylor Swift has she's unique in her stardom, and the devotion of her fans is unbelievable. Almost akin to the Beatles, which was before our generation, so I can't call that. But there's just an unbelievable immediate positive reception versus no kind of whatever Taylor says is just immediately positively received. And that's concerning. You're like, okay, nobody's perfect, but we can't just, because a celebrity utters something, it's just not, perfectly positive in every reception of it. So I think that's one of the things that I'm concerned with, is like with all celebrities, but she's just at such an advanced level of that with the devotion of her fans, that what you see is she does have a deep love for her fan base. She's communicated that time and time again of how appreciative she is of how devoted her fan base is to her.
I believe that to be genuine.
And I think that's, and I'm not trying to undermine it, like I think really does, the reason that she pulls out all the stops on the Eras tour and she kept adding more cities, more and more, is because she wanted to give her fans they have such a devotion to her. She recognizes that and wants to give them the experience. But anytime that we see that is going to be a question for me that okay, this is a one-way relationship. I think those fans, they have a connection to her, but she doesn't really have a personal connection to them.
Yeah, and not personal. I do think she has
a connection to them.
It's a different kind of relationship.
And that's
because they all know more about her than she knows about them.
And that's it. They know every ounce of her life. They know every minute, moment, every meal she has. They're so devoted to her because she is able to speak into their human experience. But that's only one way.
Right. And the proposal speaks of that. We experienced that with the proposal.
Yes.
The kind of, the people posting on social media and their day just actually stopping.
Yeah.
I'm certain if we were to look at data, that workplace productivity dipped when we found out that our high school English teacher was marrying a football coach.
Yes.
So I do think that demonstrates well the concern that you're identifying, that people are more invested in her than she is in them. And that's just because she can't.
She can't be.
It's not possible.
She has too many fans.
Yeah. So I thought what might be interesting, Father Joseph Anthony, as the rest of this episode goes, it would be to do a bit of modeling and to think critically about some of her lyrics. So I think the most important theme, and the theme for which she has become successful, is her reflection on love. So we're talking about her breakups and these kinds of things. And I think there are things that are very true and are very beautiful in her description of love. And I think there are things that need to be qualified and rightly understood. So what I want to do is toss out a couple lyrics to you. See what your thoughts are. I have my thoughts. So here's one that I love from Daylight. I once believed love would be burning red, but it's golden like daylight. I once believed love would be burning red, but it's golden like daylight. The reason I like this lyric is because it suggests that romantic love isn't merely passion. You know, the color red signifies being
Intensity
overwhelmed,
and passion,
intensity and passion. And what she's saying is that was not a true understanding of what love really is. Love is more encompassing. It's softer like daylight. It's not just the moment of intensity like at a sunrise or a sunset when there's red. Those are small moments in the day. Love is a kind of enduring thing. It's like that by which you live. Daylight is what fills the hours of the day. It's not the small part, it's the big part. And so there's a suggestion there in saying love is more like daylight than like red, that true love is to be found in the simple things, in the natural things, in the everyday things. And I think there's something really profound there.
Yeah, what I love when I hear that lyric there is that it reflects a certain kind of youthful expectation that maybe have been shaped by Hallmark movies or whatever it may be. But when you actually begin to have a relationship and you meet your person in whatever way you want to say that, but you realize that the love that you kind of is going to be sustaining is not what was written about in cinema or whatever it may be. But you're actually realizing what it takes to actually enter into a loving relationship with this other person is something that you've experienced kind of throughout your life, and it's going to help persevere through that. And so, and the other aspect is red lights, if you will. They're always used for, emergency vehicles, fire trucks, and police vehicles so that they can get your attention. But daylight illuminates all things. In the middle, the sun and in your daylight.
It's the thing by which you see, not just the thing you're seeing.
That's what I love about that is it's her expectation of love being red means I thought it would grab my attention and just get me. But what she understands is at the end of the day, love is the daylight that helps me to see all things, because I've seen not just this one little spot, but I get to see the entirety of my life through this daylight, through this love. And it changes kind of your optics, but to me, it shows that maturity of true understanding of what a loving relationship is.
That's a great point. So what about this one? The stakes are high, the water's rough, but this love is ours. The stakes are high, the water's rough, but this love is ours. So one of the understandings from the church on the nature of love is that love is mutual. Is that it's a shared thing. You can't have love if it's one-sided. If it's a one-sided thing, that's an obsession.
That's obsession, yeah.
That's not
infatuation,
not yes.
And then obsession is at the very extreme of it all.
So in order for if you're asking, you're looking in your life and you're saying, is this romantic love? That's an important question to ask, to say, is it mutual? We do this in a natural way. You're trying to find out, is she really into me? But as you assess the nature of love, it has to grow in a mutual way, and that mutuality has to continue to expand. So the stakes are high, the waters are up, but this love is ours. And then I also like the suggestion that because the water's rough, that mutuality, the shared nature of love, is the kind of thing that will preserve you through the difficult moments of life.
when you hear that line, the stakes are high, the waters are rough. What's the visual image that you have
cool.
right there?
Interesting. So I'm thinking of a boat, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
Something on a lake, and I'm thinking of waves.
Similar, but slightly different. When I hear the waters are rough, I'm hearing the waters crashing against a rock.
Oh.
Right? And to me, it's like, okay, the stakes are high and the water's rough because it keeps crashing against it, but the rocks are steadfast. Like they absorb the rough seas,
nice.
which is a little different. And
I'm like in the boat riding it out.
You're on the boat riding the rough waves, but I'm like the visual that I hear in that is this like boulder, this rock that the waves are crashing onto, but that they're enduring that, and as I hear those lyrics, it's like, but this love is ours. This love is the rock that absorbs the rough seas, the rough waves crashing upon it, so that this love can be stable, right? And when we see true love, a true total gift of self from one to the other, ideally or moving towards the marital union, there is your love that is a shared total gift of self is the rock, the stability that is able to endure rough seas and rough waves. Because there will be rough times in love. And it's not as if we need to get out of this. It's actually you need to endure through it. And it gives you a stability and kind of a fidelity in the midst of those rough waves. And the reason why is because the stakes are so high. It's worth enduring the rough seas.
Right.
Because the stakes are high, and it's worth it.
Okay, so I'm enjoying this. I want to do two more.
Okay, this is fun.
And I can't let you go. Your handprints on my soul. And I can't let you go. Your handprints on my soul. I'm trying not to look like into your eyes. It'd be so weird. And I can't let you go. Your handprints on my soul. So that's from Endgame. What I like about this lyric is that it suggests that there's a way that love changes you.
Yeah.
You're changed by what you love. Aquinas knows this very deeply. And that's why we have to be careful what we love.
Yes.
And be careful who we love. And be prudent in the giving away of your heart. Because love does change you. We become the things we love, not merely marked by them, but we become them. Love is to bring something into you and to be joined to it. So there's a permanence always to love. Your handprints on my soul. When you let someone in, you will be changed by them. You will be.
Yeah. And I think when you maybe take a half step, not even a full step, but like a half step back and see what we talked about earlier, is a lot of Taylor Swift's music was written out of the context of romantic relationships. Majority of them are, breakups in that. But she has this line here is like, I can't let go of you. Your handprints are on my souls, because those people were let into her life. And yes, maybe the relationship fell apart, whether in a mutual way or not or whatever, but like there's still an impact and imprint from that relationship. And so what you were saying is like, we have to be careful about who we give our hearts to, because when we let people in like that, they're going to have a lasting impact on us. And I think sometimes the approach may be, okay, that relationship's done. I want to move on. I want to forget it. I want to like kind of sanitize and wipe that clean from my history. But that's not real. We've let somebody into our life. And so there are going to be their fingerprints on us, for better or worse. And part of it is accepting that. And, in God's providence, all things are given to the glory of God, and all things can be moved to the glory of God, even past relationships, that maybe have broken down. And we can even let somebody go in that, but there's still an impact there, and that can be redeemed and glorified. But there's an honest acknowledgement that there's a certain fingerprint or handprint on who I am because of that relationship. And I do kind of appreciate that.
Okay, finally, here's the last one. We could do like 7 more
I know.
episodes on this.
This was interesting because we didn't collaborate on which lyrics we wanted, so I wanted to see if you were going to pick up on any of the ones that I was thinking of. But yeah, go for it.
So here's the last. So this one's also from Daylight. I don't want to look at anything else now that I saw you, and I don't want to think of anything else now that I've thought of you. What I like about this is that love is exclusive. So there's all kinds of... This is what the church teaches about the nature of marriage. This is what the church teaches about love. Love isn't simply passionate, like we were talking about the first lyric. Love requires mutuality. Love is permanent, but love is exclusive.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that you can only give to one other person, in the highest form of the expression of romantic love. And it does shape our desire so that we would be perfectly conformed to that other person. So I was texting a friend recently, and I said, buddy, the best thing you've ever done is marry this woman.
Yeah.
And he sends back, the text like, don't I know it? And then I got an awesome video of the two of them Irish dancing at their wedding reception. But the point is that there could be no one else for him, and there could be no one else for her. And thank God that they found each other. Thank God that he brought them in his providence, brought them together.
Yeah. I remember, similar enough, I was texting a former student of mine recently, and he was telling me about a new relationship that he's in. And he said, I've always had kind of this ideal woman in my mind, the attributes of a woman I would want to marry and all of these things. And he said, and then I met this girl, and she's exceeded everything that I have ever thought of. And she is the person I would have never expected. And he was like, she's not like whatever cartoonish caricature of my ideal woman that I had in my head, that I was kind of gauging every other past relationship to, or the standard that I was having every other thing. She didn't fit that standard because she was nothing that I would have expected. And yet she exceeds all of it because she's real. And it reminds me of this fact that like he had to enter into a real relationship with a real person and be open to that real person and who she is. And when you hear this, is like he now is not just smitten, but he's very devoted to her because she has fulfilled, in a certain sense, his desires for a spouse in ways that he could have never predicted, but he is able to recognize that she does fulfill that. And now he's in the same way. It's like, I don't want to see anybody else. And I don't think of anybody else because she has totally kind of blown away my expectations. And so when that happens, that is genuine, that is authentic. And the effect of it is exactly this. You don't think about anybody else. You don't see anybody else because this is the one in front of you.
Turning to you, our listener, let us know what we missed in this episode.
So much,
if you have
I'm sure.
ideas that we should be talking about for Taylor Swift, maybe share with us your favorite lyric. It's like, Father Patrick, the lyrics you chose are garbage. I have other ones. We'll put them in the comments. We want to hear.
What's your favorite Taylor Swift lyric?
Yeah. What's your favorite lyric? What's your favorite song? What else you want to hear us talk about? We could easily do another episode on this, but you have to let us know what you think. If you haven't already, go over to the Apple Podcasts or to Spotify or to our YouTube channel. Connect with us. Hit that subscribe button. Get notifications. You won't want to miss an episode of our podcast. We're serious about asking you to leave a comment. But if you're inclined, leave a review. Help other listeners find us. If you think someone could benefit from listening to this episode, please share it. Recommending our podcast is the number one way people find out about our project. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a monthly donation. Yeah, you
are the monthly donation. Yeah.
Please consider becoming a monthly supporter by making a monthly donation to us on Patreon. We don't actually require you to give pieces of yourself, just your money, to our podcast. But most importantly, we ask that you would please pray for us. We're praying for you. God bless. Father Gregory.
Father Patrick.
Story of a Soul or Confessions?
Story of a Soul.
Imitation of Christ or Orthodoxy?
Orthodoxy.
Interior Castle or Father Smith Instructs Jackson?
I don't think I've read either of them.
The Dialogue or Introduction to the Devout Life?
Oh, both? Can I take both on account of the fact that I took neither on the last one?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay.
I'll allow it. And best of all?
The Bible?
Nice work. Excellent. I thought for sure you were going to say the Summa Theologiae.
Oh, no. Not so easily duped.
Friends, if you are interested in more striking and profound conversations like this one, hit that subscribe button, pound it. Don't miss a piece of this exemplary content.
Yes.